This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
Yo, this is Sharmane from the Single Simulcast. And when I'm not making you laugh or making up parody songs, I'm kicking back, listening to Militantly Mixed.
Hi, and welcome to Militantly Mixed, the podcast about race and identity from the mixed race perspective. I am your host, Sharmane, aka Mixed Girl Maine, and this is a part 2 from last week's episode with Mariline. So I don't really have to do too much of an intro for the episode, but I do have to make a correction from last week. When we had our discussion, Mariline had explained a concept that they have in Canada called the mixed salad versus the U.S. melting pot, and I had misheard her. I kept hearing the word salad. I didn't even think that it was any other word. So even though she used the salad as an example, I didn't make the connection. So I actually named the episode the mixed salad. She corrected me after it aired. So I went back in and fixed it with our host, but it hasn't seemed to update on iTunes yet. I'm not sure if it's updated on the other podcast platforms, but I'll go ahead and check that. So I just want to make that correction. The episode is actually called a mixed salad versus the melting pot. And the concept that she is speaking about is the mixed salad. And it's just for me, I guess it was not having the ear for the Canadian pronunciation or me thinking maybe I have an understanding of different dialects, and sometimes I just don't, especially if it doesn't come from my own mixedness. So I want to make sure that I got that correction up in there, and it is corrected on all of our social media and everything like that. It's just the iTunes was the last thing that I saw that didn't have that update, and I don't typically check the other platforms, but I should go and do that. So if you see that, that's what that is. But this is the extension of that episode. By the time we were about to wrap up our hour of discussion, she wanted to keep going, I wanted to keep going, so we get into some heavier things in the second portion of our discussion, which is about 40 minutes or so. So we kept going. We went on for a little while, and it was fun. She's a great guest to talk to, and a lot of interesting perspectives from the mixed side that is different than my own perspective. So it's always nice when someone comes from something that's different from me, because I learn so much about just how diverse and nuanced we are as mixed people, and it's awesome. So that is that. I want to make that correction. These last couple of weeks have been a little bit bumpy, just in terms of Sharmane experience. If you've been listening to the show for a while, then you know that I've been doing this basically full time for the last few months, and I've been officially unemployed. I've done some freelance work, but I've been officially unemployed for about 15 months, and it's been kind of a difficult time for me personally. It's something that derailed my career a while back, and can't really talk about it, so I won't really go into it, but there's been some time that I've had off. It's been kind of difficult for me to find work because of that, and then also I became 40. I'm also a woman of color. I have a pretty impressive resume and background, but for whatever reason it was kind of difficult this time around for me to look for work. I never had an experience quite like this, and it played into my depression and my anxiety quite heavily. So it's been a pretty rough year and a half for me, but I did find a job. I have a new position, an awesome position that I started last week, but because of that, and because I've been out of work for 15 months, I am not used to being awake during the daytime. I'm usually editing until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and so I had basically adjusted my schedule to that, going to bed 2 or 3 o'clock at night sometimes, 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and waking up around 11 or 12. So I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to adjust my sleep schedule so that I'd be prepared for this new job. I am gotten better. I'm definitely awake during the day, but I'm still not fully adjusted. So I just am asking my audience to bear with me for the next couple weeks as I sort of smooth out my combining my new work schedule with my recording and editing schedule. So I don't feel like the last couple of weeks have been very representative of my normal level of skills in terms of producing these shows. I don't think they've lacked that much, but I do think it's not my peak performance, and so I do need a little bit of time to kind of adjust to this new part of my life or new chapter in my life, and then we'll get back to the better caliber or hopefully higher caliber work that I think I normally do for the shows. But this one is, that's no reflection of the actual guests that I've spoken to, because most of these have been recorded weeks prior to me actually putting the episodes out. It's just really my intros and the quality of the editing and stuff like that has been affected. But I'm getting there. I'm starting to adjust a little bit better. And even though I did have to take on a day job to help pay my bills and keep the podcast going, that I still consider that my side hustle. And the podcasting, the ManeHustle Media, Black Radical Queer, Militantly Mixed, and Militantly Mixed the Black as Fuck editions are my main hustle. So like I said, just bear with me for a couple weeks while I sort of regulate and get used to this new schedule that I have, and then you'll start to see the old Sharmane back on these shows. I do have a couple announcements that will affect Militantly Mixed but aren't directly about Militantly Mixed. On Tuesdays, I normally release Militantly Mixed the Black as Fuck edition with my boy Blurred Vision, my childhood friend. We talk about blackness from the mixed black perspective on that show. And lately, it has been mostly primarily dedicated to the news of what's going on in our current climate as it relates to blackness. And it's almost always depressing or sad. Someone's dead or being harassed or abused or in jail and things like that. And it was starting to really bog me down. Because I focus so heavily on race throughout my shows, I didn't really have a release, a non-race related release. And I feel like you could tell that I was the air was out of my balloon, basically. The last few weeks, it gotten tougher and tougher, especially through the Kavanaugh stuff. And Botham Jean really affected me pretty deeply. And a couple incidents that had happened in real life, in my direct life, my meat space, and it's been kind of tough. And so when Blurred Vision and I did the Venom review episode and we got to talk about geeky shit, I got lighter, and it made me pretty happy. Also being on Why So Serious and Mocha Minutes and Single Simulcast the last couple weeks or a couple weeks ago, and getting to just talk about random things gave me some lightness as well. And so Blurred Vision and I got to talking, and we chatted about possibly incorporating that geek stuff that we normally talk about in our friendship into our show. So we're going to be transitioning Militantly Mixed the Black as Fuck edition into a Blurred Comics, MIX, and we're still gonna talk about blackness and mixed blackness and everything like that, but we'll also come at it from our geeky and comic book love and stuff like that. We'll talk about news as well, but we'll try to end the episodes on those things that are more geeky oriented and stuff, just to try to keep our own lives a little bit lighter. We love talking every week, and that thing's not going to slow down. It was just the heaviness, like incorporating too much of the heaviness in my day to day. So and his too. You know, it would be good to talk about these things kind of therapeutic, but then we'd be kind of angry and upset for the rest of the day, and it was hard to like move on. But the last couple times where we've just talked about geeky shit, things have been more level. We returned to our families being, a little bit lighter and stuff like that. So that's what's going to happen. You'll see that come over the next couple weeks. But how that will impact Militantly Mixed is that we are now going to start releasing Militantly Mixed effective in the first week of November, the first full week of November. We're going to switch Militantly Mixed over to Tuesdays, and Blurred Comics will air on Thursdays. Still same, you won't have to change anything if you subscribe already. It'll just load and you'll see it happen. You'll see us on our social media as well. It'll just come on Tuesdays starting not next week but the week after, and Blurred Comics will load on Thursdays. So that is the only real change that's happening to Militantly Mixed, and it's only because we record, Blurred Vision and I record on Tuesdays. Usually we need usually it's a whole week until our episodes air, and a lot of stuff is passed by the time that week has happened. So this will help us be more current in terms of that sort of topical stuff. And since Militantly Mixed is more about the mixed race experience directly as it relates to my guests, it doesn't necessarily have to hit on a certain day. So we're going to go ahead and switch that to Tuesday. I think that's about it. I am cutting it down pretty close to the wire. This episode has to be up in a couple hours, so I gotta finish up this intro and editing and everything like that and get it ready for y'all. But before I do that, don't forget, Militantly Mixed is a fan-sponsored podcast, and with your support, it'll help us keep going and growing. As of right now, our current sponsorship does allow us to cover our hosting fees for Militantly Mixed, which is amazing and such a stress relief given, my recent employment situation. So it's awesome. And as we continue to grow with more sponsorship, new things will happen. Our quality will improve. I'll be able to hire an engineer, and so that we get a higher echelon or higher quality of editing. That's a big goal for me. I'd like to also soundproof my area a little bit better so that you can get a better quality of episode as well. So if we get some more sponsorship, that's the kind of stuff that we'll do with that. And then we will give you a more high caliber product. That's what we're hoping to do over time. Even if it takes us a few years to get there, we're going to get there. I'm not slowing down on this at all. Militantly Mixed itself gives me life and has basically brought me back from a really dark patch of major depression in my life. So I won't be slowing down. I just need your help to keep us going. That's about it. If you do want to sponsor us on Patreon, you can sponsor us as low as $1 to as high as anything you wish. We do have different reward levels that go up to, I think, $25 or $50. I am going to add some new swag soon. I'm testing out a couple things that are going to be delivered in the next week or so, that if I like it, then I'm going to incorporate it into our sponsorship packages. So you can go to patreon.com/militantlymixed if you wish to do that. And if you just want to hit us with a one-time donation and you don't want to do the monthly, that's totally fine too. Anything helps. Again, from as low as $1 to as high as anything you wish. So yes, 2 avenues, patreon.com/militantlymixed and paypal.me/militantlymixed. And it really does help. I can't tell you, knowing that we can cover the hosting has been such a huge relief for me over this last month, and going forward, I just know that at least I don't have to slow down where Militantly Mixed is concerned. So I'm super happy about it, and I'm very appreciative to our current sponsors, and I will be super appreciative to our future sponsors as well. Okay, so I think that's it. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the second part of my interview with Mariline. And don't forget to follow us on our social media, Twitter and Instagram at Militantly Mixed, on Facebook.com/Militantly Mixed. And you can email me directly at Sharmane, S as in Sam, HAR, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, E, at militantlymixed.com. Or you can leave us a voicemail on our Skype number at 323-545-6001. If you have a mixed story you want to tell, if you want to be considered to come on the show, if you want to talk about anything related to any of the other shows that we have on the ManeHustle Media Network, including our future podcast, The First Time I Ever, which is going to be a podcast about your first experiences doing anything, flying a plane, crashing a car for the first time, vandalizing when you're a teenager, first time you got a pet, anything that you have that is a first experience that you'd like to talk about, you can either leave us a voicemail or hit me up through our various social media channels, and we'll get you on the show. And that's coming hopefully in December if I get enough stories to put together a couple episodes. So I think that's about it. That's a pretty good one. I'm looking forward to finishing out this part 2 of this discussion with Mariline, and then we'll come back next week. Hopefully we sound a little bit more normal, or the royal we, Sharmane, sounds a little bit more normal as I've adjusted to my new schedule. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's keep going then.
Okay. Okay, good. So yeah, I started this this whole sort of vein of discussion because I make it I got into the whole mixed salad versus melting pot thing, talking about that because I was gonna say that I make it a point whenever Black people, especially whenever they ask me what I'm mixed with, and then I tell them and they say, oh, that's such a good mix. But I have personally an issue with that, because what's a bad mix? And
what does it even mean?
What does that even mean? So I make it a joke oh, I don't know if it's a good one. It's a pretty ironic one based on their histories. France and Haiti is right. Right. So I'm I don't know. I guess both my parents decided to just defy their ancestors and stuff. And just do whatever. It's pretty ironic. And
yeah, it's kind of a cultural Romeo and Juliet situation, right?
Pretty much. Even on my dad's side, with my grandma being Algerian and my grandpa being from France, that's also a pretty Algeria and France,
colonialism.
They don't have colonialism. Yeah. And even after France was out of Algeria, I think they made it a point to just not have French be a language anymore, even though it's probably still really, really used there, but they probably enacted a lot of laws
to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember my dad telling me that. So I was yeah, my whole family is just it's just a bunch of irony based on the history between the countries. But
isn't that weird though? I think a lot of us mixed people have this, because in my case, I'm literally both Allied and Axis powers in terms of World War II. Like, I had a family member that fought in Japan. I had, I had a British great uncle that died. Like, my family is both that. Not to mention that I'm Black, and and British colonialism is pervasive throughout the world, but like my Black grandfather married a white British woman. Like, across the board, there's something where you can connect and be like, why? Why did you guys mix?
Why did you guys do that? And now I'm just thinking about this documentary I watched about like Black people like coming just a huge bunch of Black people showing up in England after the wars, because they were technically British subjects. They just wanted to show up and kind of live the kind of life they'd been working so hard for and never got to taste of. But right. But I remember reading watching this documentary like in college a while back, where because of like all the treatment that like Caribbean like Black people got when they were in Britain, like men especially, like there was like a huge amount of them that would like make like efforts to actually just date British women as sort of like, oh, you guys fucked us over, let's just fuck your women and just do that. So yeah, I just thought of that and thought that was pretty funny. But
do you remember the name of that documentary?
I do not, but I could probably try and find it. I probably still have, I'm a bit of a hoarder. I keep a lot of things, so I probably still have my syllabus for that class somewhere.
Is that so? I am too, and I credit it to my Japanese side, because we keep everything like in a weird way where it's both sentimental and not sentimental. It's just important not to let anybody else have it. I don't know how else to describe it. But for me, the hoarder thing is kind of a Japanese thing. I wonder if that is other cultures do things like that.
I don't know. Like, for like my Haitian side, it's more like they like to buy like nice, like quote unquote nice, because tastes are different. They like to buy like nice looking things. And I don't know if this is a thing for like Japanese people too, but like there's like a living room that I'm not allowed to go in my parents' house. Yeah. And like the couches are covered in like this plastic. And no one can like sit there. But me, I just get like very attached to things. Like, oh, I had this notebook in grade 10 and I was so happy then. Let me just keep that to remind myself of how happy I was when I was 16.
Yeah, I'm exactly like that. There's a lot of things where my husband isn't like that, and he'll be just like, throw it away, you don't use it anymore. And I'm like, but it's mine. Like, it's, I don't know also if maybe too, because I also grew up on welfare here in the States, and so there's this thing that it doesn't happen often, but every now and then there's something where it's like, because I grew up with that level of poverty and that hardship, if I have something, it's mine, and I need to be able to keep it. So I do actually struggle because of things like that. But yeah, so in my house, because we didn't have the extra room, we didn't have that, but we were those types of people for sure. So there was definitely like things that you weren't allowed. Actually, my British grandmother did have that. There was some things that were in plastic that you weren't allowed to touch, or it would only be available if guests came. That was okay. But there's things like, we take Japanese side, we take our shoes off when we go into our house and things like that. And other houses.
Okay. Yeah. We do that too. Is that not universal?
It's not universal. So it's certainly not Caucasian, at least in terms of like the Caucasians that are here in the States. But like for Japanese, it's a part of the tradition, because you are being disrespectful to a home if you wear your shoes in the home. So as a sign of respect to like sort of honor the home that you live in and respect that, this space is yours and your family's, you take your shoes off on the outside, and then you wear like what my family calls shower shoes, but it's really either like flip-flops or like house slippers. You could put those on in the house, but they can never cross outside. So like if you're wearing flip-flops and those are your in-home flip-flops, you can't go into the backyard with them. You'd have to take them off at that door and then go in and get shoes for there. So in terms of Japanese-ness, that is how we do the shoe thing. Other Asian cultures also do the shoe thing. Like you don't wear shoes in your house. Whether or not I don't know whether or not it's the same level of like, because you're respecting your home as a different plane. I don't know if that's the case, but I have known other people of color that are from other places where they have that as well. And sometimes it's been just because the carpet is new and no one wants to mess up the carpet. But mostly, like in my case, it's always been a cultural thing. So I'm married to someone who isn't like that, and having to deal, like in the early stages of living together, having to deal with him walking around the house with shoes and me kind of falling apart from it. Like now I understand, like I take my shoes off and he doesn't necessarily do it. And then I tried to get him to where he would wear, you know, like shower shoes, like we call it shower shoes, and he would kind of do it and then he wouldn't do it. And to see even his socked feet on the carpet without shower shoes, like at first, was really hard for me to deal with. And so there's like some of those things have been broken down over time, but I still, like, it's not broken down so much that I don't do it when I go to other people's houses. So I do ask if I go into people's house, like, do I take my shoes off here? Because I want to. Yeah. Like, I'm inclined to.
Yeah, I do that too.
But if they're the kind of people that are like, no, it's okay, then I'll just like, okay. But inevitably, at some point, I will end up taking my shoes off. Like, I'll try to walk around, and then like it happened recently at a cookout. I went to a friend's house, and I'd never asked. I just like walked around, like everybody had shoes on, so I kept shoes. And then after a while, I was like, no, I can't do this. And so I went back to the front door and I took my shoes off. And yeah, so like it's just one of those things, like you can't help. But yeah, no, Caucasian people here in the States, at least, I can't speak for other places, they're not like that. They don't take their shoes off.
Okay. Yeah, for me in my house, we like always take our shoes off, like always. Like when you come into the house, you take them off. Like there's no walking around the house with your shoes on. Like I don't know, but I have been to people's places before, like Caucasian, and they had like, you know, like a little like shoe rack near the door. So, you know, but then I've also been places where it's like I take my shoes off. They're like, oh, you can keep those on, and I'm like, okay. But I don't know if this is a Caribbean thing, but you know, me and my friend, her parents are from Trinidad, so we joke about stuff like that, where we were watching TV and, you know, someone came from the outside and then sits on the bed with like their outside clothes on.
Yeah, I hate that
too. You know, it's like you were like out in public with these clothes. You sat in like public benches with these clothes. Now you're in your bed with these clothes. Like it's so dirty. You're just like bringing all of these germs into like your private space, you know. But
so yeah, I don't know where that comes from either. But I have that could possibly be from the Black and the Japanese side. But I have that too, and it's another one of those things that my husband's culture has basically forced me to have to adjust to it. I don't like to sit on the bed with, especially like outdoor clothes I hate, but your shoes, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Why do you have your shoes on? But like here, there's people who have like a studio apartments or 1-bedroom apartments where like the bedroom is their main space, and they're like, yeah, just sit on the bed. And I'm just like, you know how insane that sounds to a person like me? Like, I don't know how to explain it to people who are just that comfortable. But also there's something that one of the comedians from the same thing that I went to last night was talking about, like how you know if a partner is right for you is their level. One of the many things he listed was hygiene. And so he tells a story about how him and his girlfriend were in Hawaii on a vacation, and they spent all day at the beach from sunup to sundown, and then they were going to go to this club thing or whatever afterwards. And so they go back to the hotel, and he goes into the shower, and he comes back, and after he finished the shower, she's dressed. And he was like, like, what? You just spent all day outside. Like, why do you think you can transition from day to night without taking a shower? Like, you better not do that. And he's like, if your partner doesn't take a minimum of 2 showers a day, or at least a shower between events, no, they're not right for you. And it just made me laugh because there were so many of these things that I do that I never even connected to my culture. It was just like what we did, and my husband has pretty much like ruined some of those things because he doesn't do those things. And it's another of the things that, like, which is difficult. I talk about in another upcoming episode, I think, or no, I talk about in an episode of a different show, where it's like it was really hard for me to adjust to. I just so happened to fall in love with a partner that was white, or that was raised white. You know, he is half Arabic, but he wasn't exposed to Arabic culture, so he's essentially half white, even though he looks mixed. And so all the weird things that their culture just allows them to just be, I don't have any of those comforts. Like, I can't walk into a space and just be comfortable, you know, like I need to take off my shoes. I need to, you know where I'm allowed to sit. I need to, you know, clean my dishes before I put them in the dishwasher, you know, like a bunch of different things that he doesn't do. Oh, like washcloths. You wash your body with washcloths, but he doesn't do that. Like, there's all these things that, in terms of like stereotypes, we are just a household of combating stereotypes at all times.
That's so funny.
And it was really tough for being me, who's like this, I'm mixed, but I'm like pro-black mixed, you know, and everything, you know, I talk about my hierarchy as sort of being black and then Japanese and then whatever. But like when his comfort in spaces makes me aware of our difference, it would make it really hard for me to be like, I can't believe, like, why did I fall in love with my friend when I was 22 years old? You know, because I have all these things I have to confront on a regular basis in terms of our raceness. And he's aware, you know, he's woke, I guess, and he definitely tries to do things, but there's some things where he'll just turn around and be like, why do you care about that? Who cares? And I'm like, because of my culture. Like, my culture tells me to take my shoes off. My culture tells me to do all this stuff that he doesn't do. But going back to what you said about sort of like being the right mix.
You know, that's such a good mix, you know, but what is a good mix? And I've also gotten, and we talked about this last time we spoke, but I've also gotten like, oh, like when you told me you were mixed, I expected your dad to be the black one. Like, people are shocked that, you know, my mom is black and my dad's the white one. And, you know, I guess, you know, it's like weird, you know, I suppose, like,
we make a joke here in the States that where people will say, you know, I'm mixed, and they're like, oh, well, are you mixed right or not? Meaning, is your dad the person of color? Well, at least no, not even that. If you're black with something else, then your dad has to be black. That's the black one, the right mix. If you're Asian, then you're surprised if your white is the mom. Yeah. So it is different, but we call that the right way. If you're mixed with a black dad, you're mixed the right way.
Yeah, and I've you know, I've made jokes about this before, but I, like, you know, I say like, oh, well, you know, I'm glad that my mom's the black one because, you know, she knew how to do my hair when I was growing up. So
that's
I was
true.
Out here like these other mixed kids looking, you know, like busted up, like, you know,
right.
like, just like,
oh my gosh, you could always tell a mixed kid has a white mom. And you just want to walk up to them and be like, honey, don't you have a black lady friend that can like help you? Or like go to a black hairstylist and be like, look, I'm white, my kid's mixed, I need your help, teach me, like learn how to take care of your mixed child's head. It's gonna affect their whole life.
It really will. I remember going to the hair salon because my cousin was getting her hair relaxed, and I was younger, but I remember seeing a little girl there. She was maybe 9 years old, 10 years old, and this was like a hair salon, like a Haitian hair salon, right? All the customers were essentially Haitian, and this little girl was mixed, but she was crying because this lady was trying to comb out her hair, and she was saying, has no one ever combed out your hair before? She's like, no, my mommy doesn't know how. I just remember like at that moment feeling like so bad, like, oh God, because I remember like, you know, being annoyed, always having to like sit and, you know, having my mom or my grandma do my hair when I was a kid, but I was like, oh, at least they are doing my hair, you know. But this little girl was just like in pure agony, just like 8-year-old knots in there since like years. I don't even know. But
yeah, I had a little of that because my mom, even though my hair isn't like traditionally the mixed hair, there was questions about how to take care of it at first, and since then she has gone to hair school and she is a hairstylist that focuses on black hair. She's not my black parent, but like when I was younger, there was a bunch of times when like my hair was damaged just because of her lack of knowledge or assumptions. In her case, it was legit assumptions that my hair was going to be more like my dad's. You know, like she burned my hair off a couple times. But oh God. and too, I would get these rat nests of tangles and stuff like that. And I'm super tenderheaded, so to try to sit there and comb it out was agony. So I am still very passionate about mixed hair, even though I don't have the traditional mixed hair. I see mixed kids on the street, and I could in a heartbeat if their parent, which parent is what, and you're just like, now there's a slight movement, not a movement, but you're starting to see videos pop up of black fathers doing their daughter's hairs. And stuff like that. And you're just like, please, like everybody, whatever your deal is, mix, okay, but like somebody's got to step up and advocate for that child's head. like I don't know how else to say it. Someone's
gotta do her hair. On the topic of like mixed hair, I remember because when I was growing up, my hair was just always in braids, and my mom would go to like the black hair salon and get like products that were like meant for like, you know, black hair and use it on my hair. My hair was just like always in braids, but I could never really like wear my hair out and do like a wash and go or anything like that. And I never really liked my curls because I didn't really know what they could look like.
Right.
But the first time I actually bought like products that were like, you know, made for multicultural hair, it was online. It was this brand, and I had to order it online, and it took from the States, and it took like a few weeks to get to my house. But now, you know, I go to the salon, the hair care store, and there's like all these products like that. Before, when I was 17, 16, I had to order online, and I just I look at that stuff. I'm like, these mixed kids now have it so much easier than I do, because they can just walk into the store and pick this stuff up. And all I had growing up was Dark and Lovely, and that's it.
Yeah, that was the main brand back then, for sure. Like now there's a lot of different options. And actually one of my other guests on episode 4, her family blog, she has a mixed family blog, and she deals with hair a lot because she's got 3 mixed race daughters. So she'll like review products and stuff like that on there and you know, give advice. But you know, with the major theme being like, if your kids are mixed, learn. Like educate yourself on how to, because it's not like it's their job. That's the other part. And probably it might get better as time goes on, but like my generation, I'm born only 10 years after it became legal for interracial relationships to, you know, to be married, right? So, and here in the States, and there was Loving versus Virginia, which is the interracial couple who fought for the right to stay married, and they had mixed race kids by that point and everything, but you know, they were constantly being arrested for being together in the state of Virginia, and I'm only born 10 years after that, and so like, even though I'm mixed race because and my parents are also mixed race, each of them are half white and half something else, they were essentially illegal at the time but they got a pass because they were U.S. military. So there was different exceptions that allowed the U.S. military guys to marry women from other places and bring them here. And like in the case of my Japanese grandmother, which I think I've talked about before, you know, there was like training. She was in a class with all these other foreign brides, and they had to learn how to be an American bride. And that didn't really happen. I don't believe that happened to my British grandmother. You know, there's also the thing that where Americans sort of idolize British. So the fact that she has a British accent, you know, she like mesmerizes Americans by talking. And so it was a little bit different in their case. But, you know, even though I have mixed race parents, essentially like the culture here wasn't adapted to mixed race people by the time I was born. And even though I grew up around a lot of kids on military bases that were also mixed, if we ventured out into the non-military world, we were very strange. And you know, people weren't caught up to how to talk to us or how to deal with us or things like the importance of learning how to take care of your child's hair if you're the parent that is not of color, you know, like whatever. And now I hope that, you know, there's more products now, there's more education, there's at least the internet so that you can learn how to do stuff. You know, you hope that people start to do this. But one area that I think our parents sort of failed, and maybe in my case, my parents' sort of failed. And it's not failure because of lack of trying. It's failure because of lack of knowledge, because there weren't other mixed people really before, is how to nurture your child's identity while they're sitting there trying to be both mom and dad's culture. You know, it sounds like in your case, the embracing of the Haitian side, like your dad was signed up for that too, because that was what appealed to him. In other cases, you know, it may not always be that way, or you end up with a parent that doesn't look like you, and so you're raised not having connection to, you know, you're brown but your parents white, and you're raised without the connection to the other side of your family. And this is the kind of stuff, like, this is why I feel I want to do a show like this, is because we get to hear, like, I get to hear from you, you know, your experiences, like, and yours is very interesting because, I mean, you have 2 immigrant parents in a country that allows for the mixed solid versus the melting pot, so that's pretty interesting. But at the same time, you were still othered, you know, for sure, constantly. And then you have an exposure to the States, so you have a taste of like how weird we are about it. You know, but then, you know, next week I'll end up talking to someone who, you know, may have been able to pass as something, and no one ever asked them, and no one ever talked about them, you know. So it's like, I just love that I get to have these conversations with people from all over and get exposed to this type of stuff.
It's really enlightening, and I've loved listening to the episodes, and And yeah, it's really, really interesting, and really, it feels like nice to see that there are other people with like similar experiences, for sure.
Right. Like this is one of the things that I think makes me feel the best, is these moments of getting to feel normal. Like when you said earlier, I don't remember what it was, but I think it was a couple things you said. The plastic furniture thing was certainly one of them. But there was something you said earlier, and it made me bust up laughing, because in that moment I just thought, oh my gosh, we do that too, you know? And how little I've gotten that throughout my life. You know, like, it's one thing if you're around, like, say it's all black people and they do, it's the chicken thing. That's what it was. You mentioned the non-seasoned chicken, and I just bust up laughing because I was like, you know, it's this weird thing that you're just kind of glad is kind of universal. That other mixed people get this exposure. Like, I don't know what it is. It's these moments of just like, oh, that happened to you too. That happened to me. I'm not this weird thing that I'm the only person this ever happened to. And as a mixed race person, I think we do fall under that belief sometimes that we are the only person this stuff happens to. And to be able to connect to other mixed people and to hear that the stories are somewhat similar. There's a lot of cases in which things are similar for us, especially in terms of our identity questions that we have. It's just nice in that moment or in these conversations to just be able to be like, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So do you feel comfortable in your mixed identity now? Like going back into, you know, how you felt as a child to what college did in terms of opening you up your exposure to other people of color. Do you feel like you can navigate the world now as a mixed race person and be comfortable in your skin?
Yeah, I definitely feel more comfortable in my mixedness. But I, like you, I definitely have like this hierarchy of how I identify. Like, I'm Haitian first, and then I am French, and then I'm also, you know, Canadian, because I was born here. You know, I spent most of my life here. When I go to different places and people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from Canada. But, you know, the Haitian thing is something I really identify with. It's, you know, Haitian food is what I ate growing up. I, you know, spent most of my time with Haitian people and, you know, family members, who were, you know, from my mom's side. But also with what came with, you know, growing up and like learning so much more about the world and even my own culture. Cause, you know, when I was younger, you know, I really wanted to fit in with the white kids around me. But when I was older and like really started to learn about the world and about Haiti, and, you know, this is stuff like I had been exposed to, but maybe I just didn't pay it any mind, but I am so proud to be Haitian, because like Haitian people like are badass. You know, like the Haitian Revolution, and a lot of people don't know about it.
Like, we don't talk about that, but they fought back there and took that space. Like, that was their space. Now it's amazing that we don't get to hear their story as nearly as much as
And you know, the Haiti, when people think of Haiti, for the most part, they think it's just this poor country, and it is, you know, it is a poor country. I think it's something like the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, it's unfortunate because it started off as the richest colony, or the richest, like, you know, the rich, is it colony? Is colony the right word? It was the richest.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
Yeah, the richest, like, French colony. Like, France got so much money out of Haiti. It was called like the jewel of the Caribbean or something like that. They were making so much money off of, you know, these black slaves that were working so hard there. And they just, you know, the French Revolution happened, and, you know, everyone talks about the French Revolution and the American Revolution, but the French Revolution happened, and these black slaves decided, you know, they're talking about freedom over there. We can definitely use these same like ideas that they have and just use it for our own. But no one talks about it, you know, because, you know, you just want to erase the fact that, you know, some white people got their asses kicked by all these, you know, supposedly dumb, uneducated slaves. But, you know, they fought, you know, first free black republic in the world. And, you know, sometimes I joke around with people like from Jamaica or from, you know, Nigeria or anywhere else, like, oh, you know, we've been free since 1804, y'all, for that shit in like 1950 something. But yeah, I'm very proud to be Haitian, and I love it. And I sometimes tell people, you know, there would be I don't want to sound arrogant or anything like that, but there would be no people of color walking freely in the world if it weren't for Haitian people. We started that shit, you know. We, you know, domino effect, we were the first ones. Haitians, well, I wasn't there, but, you know, the Haitian people were the first ones. Were the first ones to do it, and I'm very proud to be Haitian now. So yeah, But yeah, I'm proud of my mixedness. I also sometimes, I don't, it's not because I'm not proud, but I like to trick people, because whenever people ask me what I am, I try to joke around with them, because I don't know, I'm a trickster, I suppose. But if they're from somewhere, like I've done this before, and recently, like I remember, like I'll make stuff up to people. If they're from Nigeria, I'll tell them, oh, I'm Nigerian too, or I'm half Nigerian, and then I'll just keep it going for as long as I can. Or I'm my mom's Congolese, yeah, for sure. So I just like keep it going, so much so that like recently I ran into this old coworker of mine, and he's from Rwanda or something, and he probably heard me make this stuff up to somebody at work. And this was my old job. This was an old coworker from a job I had before, and we ran into each other, and he thought like he was speaking what's it called, Swahili with some people around him. He was like, oh, sorry. I was like, oh, I don't know what you're saying, right? He's like, what? I thought this entire time you spoke Swahili. I was like, no, I don't. He's like, I heard you tell somebody that you were half Congolese, and I heard you speak Swahili to them. I was like, no, I just, I learned like a few phrases and a few languages so I don't. He was like, oh my gosh, but yeah, I do that sometimes. But I am proud of my mixedness. I am proud of who I am. I am both Haitian and I'm French, but when I go to France, or when I'm around French people from France, they don't claim me, so it's not really the first thing that I'm gonna I identify with. But it is part of who I am, and I definitely say like I'm Haitian above anything else.
And I think a lot of us have that experience where at least one of our ethnic groups does celebrate us a little bit more or absorb us a little bit more. It's usually the of color version if we are mixed with white. And so, I mean, I feel like that's probably our universal truth as mixed race people, that, we will be absorbed by the of color side of us. And it's beautiful. Like we're just a different part of their story, right? So now you're just another part of the Haitian experience. And, I mean, historically, I'm sure there are tons of mixed Haitians because of colonialism and things like that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know how accurate this is. I remember reading though that Alexandre Dumas, the dude who wrote the Three Musketeers, I think he was part Haitian too, but no one
I do believe that is the case. It's the same, like there's I mean in our case, Alexander Hamilton, he was also born in the West Indies, and I think that his father was British, but his mother was, where was he from now I'm spacing on what island he came from, but same type of thing. Like I think historically we actually had leaders or affluent people that were mixed race, and whether it's through ignorance that they were allowed to pass because they probably did look like you, but because back then there weren't a whole lot of mixed people yet, it was like, well, you can't be black if you just must be a dark white. Well, I guess there would be your dark skinned white people.
Like a really tan right, really tan white person.
Like you must have spent some time on the islands. You're so tan. But yeah, like I think we have a lot more historical people of mixed race people of affluence that where their mixed identity is erased, and I hope that is something that we can do with this show, is give that voice to mixed race people and put our stamp on the world and on history to say like, look, we have been here and we have been mixed for all these generations.
We're here. Also a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Don't know if you want to include them in the final cut or not, but I like the whole, like, this is about my parents because they have a lot of influence on me still in my life, but just remembering like things when I was like growing up, but the whole like my mom being black and my dad being white, sometimes feeling like black people, or especially black men, feeling like they're like entitled to my mom, even though she is married and has children. Like we've had like people come in to like fix stuff. My dad's like not a very super like handy person, so he wouldn't have fixed anything like around the house himself. But whenever I don't even remember what we were getting fixed, like maybe like a computer or something, but someone came into the house and they were black, probably Caribbean or something, and they were just like flirting heavily with my mom, with like my dad like right there, just like not caring. And I've also had like comments from people like, oh, has your dad ever felt threatened that your mom was going to leave him for like a black man, because black men are just like manlier or something, like I don't know, but just stuff like that. And
is that also like, other Caribbean men? Because we hear, I don't know if it's true, but we hear that like the Caribbean men tend to be, you know, like super high level machismo alpha male.
Yeah.
And then that sense of entitlement to women is laced into the culture.
Yeah. It's definitely like for the most part, like always been like Caribbean men. And I do remember a while back we had a cousin come for Christmas. I think this was maybe 2 Christmases ago. A cousin come to spend Christmas with us. And this is a cousin I'd never met before because they were born in Haiti and they'd only been in Canada for a few years. And they came here and he asked my mom in Creole, and maybe they assumed that like the rest of us didn't understand, but I was just sitting there really uncomfortable because I understood what he was saying. And it's like, you're in my house, but he was telling my mom, like, you're such like a beautiful woman, you know, you work so hard, why are you married to this guy over here? You can do so much better, And it's like, my mom just like smiled uncomfortably, like this is a cousin of hers, you know, she can't, maybe she felt like she couldn't say anything, but I was sitting there like, this is like really like not an appropriate thing to say. I don't know if there's anything, I'm guessing it has something to do with race, because I feel like if my dad were black, or Haitian, would they have said that? But then like later on, you know, as dinner went on, you know, he's like conversing with my dad, because my dad's like really smart and really knowledgeable about like politics and stuff, and they're having a grand old time talking. I'm like, oh well, I guess my dad isn't so bad now after all. But yeah, just stuff like that's always bothered me. Or when we're out, I remember an aunt of mine, her husband has a really like good job, so he makes a lot of money, but he came from Haiti and he took us all out to dinner, and we were having dinner, so everyone is black, right? And then me and my siblings were mixed, but you know, black looking, and then my dad is there, the only white man on the table. And then at the end of the dinner, the waitress just hands my dad the check, like automatically, even though he's not the one who asked for the check, you know. Just like little things that you notice where it's like, I don't know, it just tells you like how the world thinks, and it's kind of unfortunate. But yeah. Or like little things where like I don't look like my dad, so sometimes now that I'm an adult, you know, I'm out with him, I'm, you know, like talking to him, and then I get looks like, why is this, you know, brown girl like talking to this old white man, you know? But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, assumptions that people make in situations like that are pretty gross. So you don't even resemble him a little bit, even in features?
I look more like my mom. I mean, my dad and I both wear glasses, but physically I do look more like my mom. My younger siblings look more like my dad, like their facial features, and they're also both lighter than I am, even though they're both like, you know, like light skinned black, but they register as more like Latino than I do. I'm definitely darker than they are by a little bit, but yeah, no, I don't look that much like him. I mean, if you look closely and you know us, I guess you could probably see a difference, but at first glance, I wouldn't say so. Yeah, he's, you know, his skin is, you know, just like white, I guess, and I'm just like brown. Yeah, so.
That's always something that's interesting to me, just like not on necessarily a mixed race level, but just on a genetics level. Like my face is basically my dad's face, except for my eyes are more almondy, you know, mixed vision looking. And my full brother and I don't resemble as siblings. Like standing side by side, we actually don't even look like the same race, to be honest. He's slightly darker than me, but he looks like I always say that in terms of famous people, I guess he looks like Sean Lennon, which is the son of Yoko Ono and John Lennon. Like he kind of has that sort of look where he's kind of ambiguously white but slightly darker, you know? Like that's how my brother looks, my full brother. And then I have some half siblings. My father has kids with, you know, a wife after my mom, and they're Mexican, Swiss, Italian, their mother. And so they're black, British, Caucasian British, and then Mexican, Swiss, Italian. And my half sister, when she was born, she didn't look like anybody, but when she kind of like cleared out a little bit, like after she got like 3 or 4 months old and she started to look like she was going to look like, she basically had my face, except for she's white looking, green eyed with blonde hair. And so like throughout her childhood, when I've seen photos of her, I don't know her, but throughout her childhood, when I've seen photos of her, she looks like I looked at those ages. Like I never saw her again after she was 4 years old. So but I see her on social media and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my god, I look like that at that age. I look like that at that age, except for she's like a white blonde version of me, which was really weird. And then the half brother, he looks Mexican, or at least to me. Well, he and I look similar. I think if all 4 of us were standing side by side, people would probably assume he and I were siblings, because I think we resemble quite a bit, and he's darker skinned too, you know. So I think we resemble quite a bit, and we have same lips and noses and stuff like that look like my dad. but then my full brother, the one that I should look the most like, he looks more white to me than, he's just darker skinned than I am, but he looks more white to me than at least, like, it seems like I got, even though I didn't get the skin color, I got the black side. I'm even built like the women on my dad's side of the family, and my brother is tall and skinny like my father, but he's he took way more after the white side than we did. So I'm just interested in sort of how genetics kind of make us look. You know, you hear that we tend to look like our fathers so that our fathers will bond with us and stay. But you know, obviously that doesn't always happen. Somebody's got to look like their mom at some point, and I think I just think it's interesting that we come out all these different ways. Like even just amongst my 4 siblings, if we were raised together, would, you know, only 2 of us, 2 and 2. But if we were actually a family, we wouldn't look like, no one would be able to figure out who we were, like what we were to each other, because of how different we look. It is interesting for sure, because my brother and my sister look like each other and their facial features are more like my dad. But I've gotten comments where, like, because facially I look more like my mom, and I'm also like slightly darker than them. But we both, not both, all 3 of us have like curly hair and like similar skin tones. I'm just like a couple shades darker. But I've gotten comments where like people are like, oh, you're, you know, they see pictures of my sister or my brother and they say, oh, they took more after the black side. But it's funny because they look like my dad, but people assume that they took after the black side because their lips are really full. But my dad's lips are full, and that's probably from his Algerian side. But you know, but they look like my dad, and I'm the one who looks like my mom. But people tell me, oh, you look more white than your siblings do, like in the face, even though you're darker. And it's like, well, actually, that's funny.
So genetics are funny in that way.
Yeah, we sort of covered the colorism stuff. We definitely covered the just the inappropriateness that people are towards, you know, your parents' relationship and you, that kind of stuff. We definitely got through. Certainly the stuff about like checking the boxes that we have here in the States was interesting. I think we covered a lot of good stuff. We did get a little bit into the dating stuff, even where, you know, you're concerned. So, and that was something you mentioned before. Before we wrap up, though, is there anything that you wanna say before we leave? So for anyone out there who thinks that you know, light-skinned people and mixed people are just like, you know, kind of mean or stuck up, that's not always the case. And I know that Drake is from Canada like me, and he's mixed like me, but that doesn't mean we're all in our feelings all the time. You know, we're people too. Okay. You know, we didn't ask to be treated this way, and you know, all people are just people. So let's just be kind to each other, guys. Right. And understanding. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate that you reached out. I know that when you first reached out, you were like, I thought about it, but I didn't do it, and you heard me beg on the show to please contact me. So I do appreciate that you came through for that and sharing your story and your family's story with us. If you ever want to come back, please feel free. I would love to connect back with you as well. And all right.
Well, yeah. All right. Perfect. I'm glad I did. And it was great talking to you. It was a lot of fun.
Militantly Mixed is a ManeHustle Media podcast, produced and hosted by me, Sharmane Johnson. Music is by David Bogan, The One. And if you like what you heard on Militantly Mixed, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes and wherever you find your podcasts. ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.